The man accused of killing the US healthcare insurance chief executive, Brian Thompson, has pleaded not guilty to state-level murder and terrorism charges. Luigi Mangione appeared in court in New York to face 11 state criminal counts. He also faces federal stalking and murder charges that could lead to a death penalty sentence.
Luigi Mangione, an alleged killer and subject of public fascination after days on the run, charged with the New York City murder of a healthcare insurance CEO.
Luigi Mangione.
Luigi Nicolas Mangione.
Luigi Mangione.
Luigi Mangione arrived for his extradition hearing.
On 9 December 2024, Luigi Mangione, a 26 years old from Maryland, was arrested in connection with the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The attack occurred on 4 December 2024 in Midtown Manhattan. As soon as Mangione's identity was made public, the internet made Mangione a folk hero with memes, songs, AI, and all the beautiful things that the internet can do.
Hey there, Luigi, what's it like in New York City? I know when you get to prison, you got something planned for Diddy. Yes, you do. You're my little vigilante boo, my Italy do.
In the first days after the attack, mainstream media were not able to figure out what was the motive of the attack. When Mangione's manifesto was published online, it revealed what everyone over the age of 40 already knew, the reason for his actions. The manifesto reads, quote, "I do apologize for any strife of traumas, but I had to be done. Frankly, this parasite simply had it coming," end quote. The manifesto continues talking about the poor condition of the US healthcare system compared with the magnificent profit of United Healthcare. Mangione is facing multiple charges, including multiple weapon offenses, but the most serious charge is first-degree murder and furtherance of terrorism, which means premeditated and deliberate murder with the specific intent to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence government policy, or affect government conduct. If you're here to hear about the details of the attack and Mangione's life before and after the attacks, this is not the video for you. What I want to talk about is a structural problem that we have with counter-terrorism financing laws, which in my opinion are based on outdated ideas of terrorism and fail to actually counter financing. But before we start, hi, my name is Julia. I'm a certified anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing specialist, and in my day job, I help businesses comply with anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regulation. On YouTube, I talk about money laundering, terrorism financing, and related crimes. If you're interested in these topics, please consider subscribing, liking, leaving a comment. All of these things help the channel. And now let's start from some definitions. Editing Julia here, I noted that I had to censor a lot of words in the video, which is not ideal if you're only listening, but you know how YouTube algorithm works. It doesn't like certain topics, and I spent a lot of time producing these videos. I just would like for more people to watch them, so I gotta do what I gotta do. Please bear with me on this one, and back to the video. A terrorist act advances an ideological, political, or religious cause that is intended to intimidate a population or coerce a government or international organization. A terrorist act can include death, damage to property, economic loss, or environmental damage in the case in which there is likely risk to endanger human life. On the other hand, terrorism financing is providing or collecting funds for a terroristic act, or fund activities that support terrorism. Terrorism financing is a standalone offense. It is not necessary to demonstrate that the funds were ultimately used to carry out a terroristic act. The mere action of providing or collecting funds with the intention or knowledge that they will be used for terrorism is sufficient. The concept of combating the financing of terrorism gained significant prominence in the global regulatory landscape after the September 2001 terrorist attacks in New York. In particular, the following month, the Financial Action Task Force, FATF for short, released special recommendations on terrorism financing, which recommend that states criminalize terrorism financing, cooperate internationally in terrorism financing investigations, confiscate and seize assets relating to terrorism financing, and mandate financial institutions and other vulnerable businesses to implement preventative measures to detect and deter terrorism financing and suspicious transactions. The idea behind these recommendations for financial institutions was to detect and deter terrorism financing before an attack happened and disrupt the action of terrorist groups. Great idea in paper, but in the next chapter we will see how this does not really work in practice. The FATF recommendations on counter-terrorism financing call for preventative measures. This is what businesses like banks, money remitters, lawyer, real estate agents, all of this type of businesses that handle clients' funds need to do to detect and deter terrorism financing. To do so, they need to be alert to the red flags and understand the terrorism financing risks that their clients carry. In other words, customer-facing staff and staff that analyze clients' transactions need to be vigilant on the client's behavior to be able to detect if a client is acting suspiciously or if a client is making transaction to give money to a terroristic organization. For example, a bank teller should be vigilant and be able to detect terrorism financing red flags. To do so, they will look at whether the money is sent to an entity like a charity or a person that has known tie with terrorism, or they will look for keywords, for example, numerical combinations or terms associated with terrorist ideologies. A keyword analysis can have some funny outcomes, like the lady in the UK who was flagged as a potential terrorist after sending funds with the reference "funds for ISIS," where ISIS was her horse's name. Let's get to where our current framework doesn't work. There are three fundamental threats when it comes to terrorism financing. First, we can have a person who sends funds abroad to fund terrorist cells abroad, like a person in the UK sending money to ISIS. Second, there is a person abroad who wants to send money to the country to fund a terroristic attack in a country. And finally, someone in the country sends funds within the country to fund a terroristic attack domestically. A lot of the monitoring and a lot of the red flags used by financial institutions focus on the first and second group, money sent to or received from overseas. One of the reasons why this is the most monitored is, in my opinion, because it's the easiest to monitor. A common monitor rule that many financial institutions have is to flag all transactions that are directed to or coming from certain countries that are located in conflict zones or neighboring conflict zones or have known terrorist hubs, especially Islam fundamentalists. So all the transactions directed to or coming from Burkina Faso or Afghanistan, for example, will be automatically filtered for a manual review. These are very simple rules to program in a transaction monitoring system, so it makes sense to use them. The reason why I think that foreign terrorist attack threats are the most monitored is also because they're scary. We all remember the facts of September 2001 in New York, which functions as the footprint for terrorism in the Western world. The attack was carried out by a foreign Islamist extremist group against the United States on United States soil. That has created a lot of fear in the Western countries that foreign Islamist extremist group may attack the country from the outside, but this fear is misplaced. A study on Islamist terrorist attacks in the world between 1979 and 2021 shows that the majority of Islamist attacks, 89.5%, were in Muslim countries, and that victims were mainly Muslims in the same proportions, with Afghanistan as the most affected country, followed by Iraq and Somalia. So the foreign Islamist threat attacking the West does not really stand. In addition, a more and more increasing number of terroristic attacks, especially far-right motivated terroristic attacks, occurred in the recent years have been perpetrated by self-funded individuals rather than organized groups. As anecdotal evidence, I can name a few that I personally remember for the past few years, like the July 2011 bombing in Oslo carried out by a far-right extremist, the May 2014 attacks in California by an incel who ran over people with a car, and the March 2019 attack in Christchurch, New Zealand at a mosque, again by a white supremacist. A 2021 FATF report comments that these lone wolf attacks are relatively simple and low cost, relying on materials that are purchased by individuals using their savings or personal loans. Expenses for these attacks are low and do not differ from normal transactions, making it challenging for financial institutions to identify relevant red flags. If we go back to the Mangione's manifesto, he says exactly that, quote, "I stated plainly that I wasn't working with anyone," end quote. Mangione acted as a lone wolf, and if we want to consider his action as a terroristic attack, he did not need any particular funding to carry it out. He purchased a firearm, he had to pay for transportation to go to New York, and that's pretty much it. No financial institutions would have been able to detect and deter his actions. There is so much to talk about Mangione. The obvious malfunction of the American healthcare system, the seeming rise of class consciousness in the aftermath of the attack, and the controversial decision to bring terrorism charges. We will need to wait for the end of the trial and see if the terrorism charges are confirmed. From the outside, it seems that the incoming administration is interested in making an example out of Luigi Mangione. If we want to analyze Mangione's actions as a terroristic attack, we can consider that his attack is in line with similar lone wolf type of terroristic attack that are rising in numbers, especially in Western countries. These are type of attacks carried out by single individuals outside of an organization, and they require minimal equipment, a knife, a car, train tickets, stuff like that. Things that many people already own or can buy with their personal savings or with a simple loan. The transactions that these individuals have to do to be able to gather sufficient supplies for their attack don't raise any red flags because they're normal, everyday transactions, and no financial institutions will be able to detect and deter the financing of terrorism in these cases. Now, the preventative work of financial institutions is only one aspect of counter-terrorism. Of course, there are many other things that still work, like the police, special agency, and countries cooperating internationally on counter-terrorism. All of these things are still working, and also I'm not here to suggest that financial institutions should stop monitoring potential financing of terrorism occurring abroad. It is still important to do that work of detection and deterrence. But when it comes to detecting and deterring domestic terrorism financing, and especially self-funded lone wolf type of attacks, the tools that we have at this point don't work. I always like to finish my videos on a positive note, but this time I really don't know what to say, because we simply do not have the tools to make counterterrorism financing monetary by financial institution efficient for domestic attack. A small incremental change that financial institutions and the general public can do is getting more education on the topic of domestic terrorism financing, and I hope that with this video I am contributing to the conversation. This is all for me now. Thanks for watching till the end. Let me know what you think about the video. Are you Team Mangione? My name is Julia from Total AML. You know what to do: like, comment, subscribe, and also give me a follow on LinkedIn, where I talk more about anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing, and I'll see you on the next one.
Hey there, Luigi, what's it like in New York City? I know when you get to prison, you got something planned for Diddy. Yes, you do. You're my little vigilante boo, my Italy.